It's HPR, All Things Considered, and I'm Dave Lawrence. We're doing another one of these very fun Atherton Performing Arts Studio sessions that we sometimes embark upon. And it's exciting because Christian McBride, voice that you hear sometimes on the program, actually, through tonight at the Blue Note with his new John, Josh Evans, Marcus Strickland, the sheet waits. He's going to tell us a lot more about it because right here in our Atherton and with a bass in tow, it's Christian himself. Aloha, welcome.
How you doing, man?
It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here.
That voice that's familiar to so many on our program. And I guess before we get into some other fun stuff with you, give your NPR show a plug because it's very cool.
Yeah, well, Jazz Night in America, I've been the host now for the last 4 years, and it's been a thrill to be able to host that show. And it actually helps me stay abreast on what's new on the jazz scene, because I'm on the road most of the time with my group, so it's hard to be in New York and kind of go around and seeing other bands unless it's a festival.
Yeah, New York's like an ongoing festival,
Exactly.
No question. I went to school in Boston, so I remember New York was just insane. There's always like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things a night minimum that are going on. And so is that where your show gets recorded out of?
Just outside in Newark, New Jersey at WBGO.
Right.
Shout out to them too. What's
Right.
up, BGO?
Great 24-hour jazz stream. And so you give a little bit of perspective on, so you do that, then you have this. You have some other projects too, right? Or is this one now taking all the time in terms of the touring?
You mean this band
Yeah.
in terms of yeah, this has been my main unit now for just over 2 years. It's amazing how time flies. We did our first gig in December of 2015 at the Village Vanguard, and at that time I was just kind of trying it out just to have another band to experiment with. And then before you knew it, we were on the road all the time. And we have a new release coming out this fall, and really excited about that.
And is that new? Because you've had so many different, you're known as this endless collaborator kind of cat. You've cycled through so many different people. Is this a long run with one element of stability with
I think my last, well, there's one ongoing band, which is my big band.
Right.
But my other units, Inside Straight, my trio, and now the new John, they've all had an average of about this time. Like whatever band I'm touring with, that's the band that I'm touring with at that particular time. I like to follow the. I think I try to embrace a combination of the Art Blakey model as well as the Chick Corea / Pat Metheny model, in that Chick Corea and he's collaborated with a lot of different people over the years, and he's had a lot of bands, and I think that's a really brilliant way to get a chance to play with a lot of great musicians, and to on a general level, you help to employ a lot of other musicians and give some younger musicians a shot. And then there's the Art Blakey model that says, okay, you got X amount of time to play in my band. After that, it's time for you to go. You can't be here forever, Make some room for some other young cats, And then Pat Metheny, Pat and Chick pretty much have a similar model, I'm not sure Pat switches bands or has as many bands simultaneously as Chick does, but he'll have, like the trio I played in with Antonio Sanchez. We were together for about 6 years. We made two recordings, and now he's got his new quartet with Linda O and Antonio Sanchez, and that's a good band. And so I try to be a combination of all of those great leaders.
You had a lot of influence to make something like this happen. Now, with painting a picture for folks who may be interested in coming down and catching this show, give a little idea about what's in store, because when you rattle off so many projects, sometimes people drag songs from one element into another. They can rework it, and that's a fun thing.
Right.
Sometimes it's a challenging thing, sometimes both. What's going to be on the plate?
Well, excuse me. I'm not good at really describing my bands because I don't want people to hear me say one thing and then they come and
Expectations.
yeah,
stuff.
and
I
then
dig
it's not exactly what they
expected it to be.
right. But I will say that, see, fortunately, YouTube has given us an outlet to say, you can go search for a preview
Right.
anytime you want.
Exactly. It's very true. All kinds of previews too. You see
Right.
a professionally done one. See all these live versions
That's right.
that all the fans do.
That's right.
And sometimes that's you're absolutely right. What a different world. Can you imagine when we were kids if you could just dial in? Because as you said that, I'm thinking, imagine if when we were younger, being able to dial in on any of your favorite bands, whoever they were,
Exactly.
and
That's right.
see, in that era back, Zeppelin, instead of like something that it would be just a handful of recordings years later, you'd be online just
That's
looking
right.
at last night's show, 80
just
different videos.
I have dreams of like James Brown doing a Facebook Live from the Apollo
Right.
in 1970.
Right, stuff like that. Woodstock streamed on,
dig it.
on YouTube for the whole weekend. Sponsored by Pepsi.
Oh God. Yeah, right.
So we were really thrilled because you were willing to bring this this instrument down here, which you can play in such a savage way. Is there a way that you can represent something that's going to occur during the course of the show solo, or you can play anything that you want, really, because it's just a thrill to have one of the voices of ATC actually here doing a little ATC with us. You can just do something that you would like.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to. I don't know if I'll be able to
Dial
play
in on the
something
show.
that's reminiscent of what we'll play
Right.
these 2 nights at the Blue Note. I mean, I could, but I don't want your listeners to be like, huh?
What is that?
You're right.
I can dig it.
So I'll just play something.
That's great. Something from our esteemed
Oh,
guest, Christian McBride here.
Not the Beatles, something.
Right, exactly. Just something, lowercase something.
That's right.
And best of all, in our HPR Atherton Performing Arts Studio. Very special. One of the voices of ATC playing live for us here. Approval from the studio audience in our HPR Atherton Performing Arts Studio. It's All Things Considered on HPR. Christian McBride doing a little solo bass here for
That's
us.
called I Haven't Been Up Very Long. That's an old standard called Alone Together.
That's nice. Sounds real nice and really, really neat. Great to hear you, and it makes me wonder, thinking about some of your roots that I was going to ask you about since you graced us with your time here. But before we get into on the musical side, being from the Philadelphia area myself,
You know what John means.
well, and I was thinking, like, I was trying to guess. I was looking at our ages and stuff, and I was thinking, like, is he a Jim's guy? Is he a Pat's guy? Is it a Lee's Hoagie House guy? I know he's not a Geno's guy. When it comes to cheesesteaks, anything on?
I'm not down with any of those places. Those are all tourist spots you just named. I grew up in West Philly, so my hoagie place no longer exists. It was on 56th and Pine called Ray's. And then there was Delancey Street Pizza, which was on, it's still there, 57th and Delancey. They got some killer steaks and hoagies there. But my main hub, when I was in high school, I went to Gennaro's Pizza, which at that time was on 12th and South, and they've since moved to 13th and Fitzwater. So it was on the route to my high school. So Questlove and I, we would hit that joint like
Constantly.
3-4 times a week.
How can you not like Jim's on South Street?
It was too crowded. It was
You're
too
just
many
going at
people
the
in
wrong
there.
time. We would come up from Wilmington and always get
I ain't got
good
no time.
parking and a good spot right by the window.
No Philadelphian would stand in line waiting for a cheese. There's too many places to go. Can't do that.
And you never drove down to Wilmington, had a Capriotti's down there, did you ever?
I did.
You know Capriotti's. It's
Yes.
legendary. Now it's a big name, especially
That's
after
right.
having Biden in the White House. He
I
used to
mean, I
bring 'em-
can't say I went there too often. I didn't go there until after I left Philly.
Okay.
I was already living in New York by the time I went down there for that. But
That's the real.
Wilmington's got a little scene, man.
With that, especially that's just like a little gem.
Yeah.
And then somebody bought it in Vegas. Now they got them all over. I'm waiting for one to come here. They got them all over the country. But on that roots thing, thinking about it, and I'm guessing musical roots, that father, great uncle. I mean, sometimes cats will they'll be a teenager, maybe in their 20s, they'll discover they like something. Other people, they have it wrapped around them. Sometimes before they're born, they'll be hearing it. Their parents will have taken them. I mean, I've heard all these interesting stories and explain how these two cats really had this so far permanent influence on you.
Well, it's hard to kind of think of where it sort of started, the love for music and bass, because I just sort of always remember it being there. My mother's brother, my Uncle Butch, who passed away many years ago, he was a promotions manager at WHAT Radio. And so even before I played the bass, I was going to live shows all the time with my uncle and my mother. So seeing all of these great R&B stars,
Like,
oh gosh, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Wilson Pickett, Smokey Robinson, LTD, the Jacksons, and then of course my world came crashing down in a wonderful way when I saw James Brown live for the first time. I was 10. It was 1982, and James still had plenty of gas left in the tank, and in fact it was a double bill with Wilson Pickett.
wow.
And so seeing all of that, and then watching my dad play with Mago Santa Maria, I was just surrounded by music all the time. So once I started playing the electric bass at age 9, my mother saw that I was really getting serious about this music thing. So she wanted to make sure I went to a school that had a good music program so I could get some real training. And then once I got to Pepper Middle School, which no longer exists, it was in Southwest Philly, I started playing the double bass. That's when my great uncle came into the picture, Howard Cooper, my great bass playing uncle, great uncle. He said, "Now that you're playing the upright, now it's time to turn you on to the stuff. And so he gave me a crash course in the history of jazz bass one night. You know, I was like 11 years old. He played Mingus, Paul Chambers, Ray Brown, Dave Holland, Ron Carter, Buster Williams, Oscar Pettiford, the whole thing. And because of the fun way my uncle would describe this stuff while he was playing it, that made me love the music even more.
And he did it right after you'd already had the thing in your hand, so you could start to really experiment.
Yes,
it was the timing.
Yes, the timing was
critical.
Exactly.
Right. It sounds like it, because sometimes you get the information, but you're not ready to deal.
You're not ready for that's right.
And that's
right.
like a whole lost moment, you know, not necessarily lost, because we don't know how fate goes.
And I always thought the double bass was sort of like the preeminent jazz instrument anyway. You know, I don't know if that was because of my dad, who actually at that time did not play the upright bass. He was only playing the electric bass. But every time I thought of the word jazz, I thought of the upright bass.
And that's also generationally, that wasn't really what a lot of your peers would be listening
Not
to.
at all.
Yes, I mean, you're in a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
And that family influence is what did that then.
I mean, look, I was 11 years old in 1983. The largest album in the world was Thriller.
Right.
You know, so nobody was interested in talking about Coltrane or Miles Davis, none of my peers at least. And what I love about my great uncle, to this very day, every now and then I think that jazz musicians, we take ourselves a little too seriously. We can get a little dogmatic when we start talking about jazz.
Right.
But my great uncle never once said to me, stop listening to Michael Jackson or James Brown.
Right.
He would say, add this on to, you know, what I'm going to turn you on to. You know?
Yeah, and also growing up in that era, it'd be hard not to have had that seep in anyway, because to get into something which would be as esoteric as jazz in the early 80s, you wouldn't be able to really shut out the rest of the world unless you bought a cave somewhere and got in on it.
Exactly.
And that's funny you say that about the merging of different styles, because music really is a universal thing. Once you get the names off of it, this is jazz, this is this, you know.
Right.
It's,
that's right.
Someone taught me that a long time ago when I was getting into international music like Manu Dibango and Salif Keita and stuff. And it taught me, like, there was in one sentence they were like, you know, once you get into cats like that, you realize that from Nirvana to the Grateful Dead isn't very far apart. So you start to realize how...
It's all a thread, man.
Yeah, there's so many different other, you know, like you see like how close everything, you know, really is. So you, when you check out, and again, it's Christian McBride, and we're thrilled he's in town playing the Blue Note with his new John project, but he's here in our HPR Atherton Performing Arts Studio. In addition to associating with us now, his Wikipedia page has some stunning names, and we would be here for several lifetimes strung end on end if we were to try to go through and tackle your catalog of stuff. It's kind of like the Vatican Museum. It really can't be done in a lifetime. So we'll name a couple of them. We already named him, and he's a really big guy, and you have up close. So you get the introduction to JB, James Brown, the Godfather.
Yes.
The minister of the new super heavy funk. I loved him too, brother. So help me take us to how it got to be something a little bit closer to you than just something you were introduced to.
Yeah. Like I said, you know, the first time I saw James Brown live, I almost didn't enjoy it because it was too intense. You know, I mean, I loved his records already. I was already his number one fan by the time I saw him live.
82 again?
In 82, yeah. But to feel that sort of, that visceral energy coming off the stage, I'd never felt anything like that before. So it was a little overwhelming, you know. But once I was able to gather my wits, my uncle and I saw, you know, James Brown, hardest working man in the show business, another one of his nicknames. He came to Philly, I would say, every 6 to 8 months. Yep. So I saw him again. That was in October of 82. We saw him again in like April of 83, again with Wilson Pickett. And by that time, I said, okay, I know what I'm in for now. Let me relax and calm down and actually enjoy the gig. I became such an uber fan. Once I started playing the bass, I realized that I wanted to play with him one day. And as fate would have it, when I graduated high school and was about to move to New York to start college, James Brown was in jail. And so I thought, man, I don't know what's going to happen now. You know, is he going to start touring again when he gets out, or is he going to be the same? I mean, what's going to be the deal? Fortunately, once he got out of jail, he did go back on the road, and he did still have a lot of gas left in the tank. And so in 1993, I was touring with Pat Metheny, and we opened for James Brown at the Montreux Jazz Festival in Switzerland. And it was that night where I started slowly making my inroads into the James Brown world. His drummer, who had just joined at that time, his name is Robert Thompson. They call him Mousy. Mousy and I became good friends that night. And through Mousy and the great Martha High, who sang with him for many, many years, I got to slowly become a part of the James Brown world. And I finally met James Brown at the Apollo in 94, the following year. And we had our first conversation the following year in 95. My first record had come out, Getting To It, of which the title track was based off of his Get It Together. And so we just started to slowly form a bond. And in 2006, I produced what turned out to be one of his last performances. His last performance in Los Angeles, definitely, at the Hollywood Bowl. We recreated his album Soul on Top live. So James Brown sang with a big band that I put together, and it was easily the most special night of my entire life.
Because you got to do your own show with this cat.
Yes.
And it was like your baby, and he was the star.
Yep.
Entertainer.
Yes.
That's
the fact that he agreed to do it in the first place was victory enough for me, you know, because I'm leaving a lot out because there were some potholes in there to get to that point.
No doubt, man.
More like craters.
No doubt. I still remember him walking out on stage at Harbor Lights in Boston in the summer of '94, which was not long after all this. And I remember he says to the crowd something like, I'll always remember this. I have a bootleg of it too. He says, "I want to thank you guys for sticking with me through my long and unwanted vacation."
Right.
You don't forget stuff like that. Well, it's we could do one more question, I guess, on a star. McCartney.
Sure.
What was it?
Sir Paul.
Right.
I worked with him on a recording, his recording "Kisses on the Bottom," and it was very. It was quick, you know. Diana Krall put that together, and we were in the studio. Sir Paul came.
Bam.
He was there for like 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours, and got in, got out. And I think they wound up using most of the vocals that he actually recorded that day. Super sweet man. He actually took some time to, say a few words to me and crack a few jokes, so super nice dude. One thing I regret is that we had been alerted that we weren't allowed to take any pictures. And so I was like, okay, whatever, it's cool. I understand, we're working, because one person is allowed to take a picture, then everyone's going to want to take a picture. And then, so at the end of the session, I saw one of the studio hands taking a photo with him. I was like, hey, what's going on? And Sir Paul was like, hey, where's your phone? I'm like, man, I thought we couldn't take any pictures. He was like, who told you that? I was like, oh, man.
What a great story.
But then my phone was dead. So I couldn't get a picture with it. But no one else had their phones ready either because,
because these conditions, that's great. Those are the little secrets you don't hear about some of these star sessions.
Yeah.
That's great. No pictures allowed.
But he was the nicest guy in the world, I regret that I adhered to that no photo.
I know what you mean. I totally do. I've had that happen with artists where they're like, no, they don't want no video, and then you show up and the artist doesn't care, and you're like, I didn't bring my stuff.
Right.
They told me I wasn't going to be allowed to do this with
Yeah.
you.
Now I'm telling you, out of all the superstars I've had a chance to work with, like Sir Paul's a very, very sweet man. Queen Latifah is the most down to earth homegirl you could ever meet in your whole life, and Sting, who's someone I've worked with on and off for 17 years now.
You got a huge list of cats. It's just incredible. I don't think, though, anything could touch the JB story.
No.
If I was to ever interview you again, I would structure that at the very end, because that's the encore.
It's Mr. Brown and then everybody else. That's right.
I can understand that. No, he was a huge thrill for me. I got to talk to him on the phone once. That was a big highlight for me. I mean, it was just like, because I know what you mean. These are the guys.
Dave, how you doing, son?
Yeah, it was just
What's happening?
Yeah, is the boss in Bosstown? his voice. I mean, I get chills just thinking about it. You know, like him and George were just like the dudes for me. I love the funk. So
that's right.
Like, I mean, those two guys. What can you say? You can't say. There's nothing to say. There's James and there's George.
That's
and
right.
there's everybody else. So,
There you go.
you want to do one more jam before we
Sure.
as we wrap it up, and it can be a surprise, and then afterwards you can say what you just dropped on us, or unless you have.
I'm going to do this song was inspired by a man who was my number one upright bass hero and mentor, the great Ray Brown, and this is his version of a very old song that he funked up a little bit.
Very nice. It's Christian McBride, and live in our...
Pardon that little slip there.
What was the jam one more time? The name of that was...
You Are My Sunshine.
Right, a classic song that you've completely turned into your own little jam there based on Ray Brown jam that you had said kind of inspired. And now when I hear you're playing and I know the JB connection, I understand like the sound that you bring to the bass, because it is a very funky sound.
Thank you.
Like, I get it now. I can see, you where your influence with Pride. Through tonight with the new John over at the Blue Note, and our guest today on All Things Considered in our HBR Atherton Performing Arts Studio. Really appreciate it. Hope you had fun. It was a lot of fun for me.
Always. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Aloha, everyone. It's Christian McBride. What's happening? I had so much fun when I was on with my friend and homeboy Dave Lawrence. I decided to stick around for this special occasion. If you're just joining us, we're doing our pledge drive here at Hawaii Public Radio, and this show, All Things Considered, could use your help. Become a member today. It's easy, and you decide how much to give. Here's how, and thank you for your support.